Joining me now to look at what to watch for and what we've seen in the Alberta provincial election is longtime Alberta political reporter Graham Thomson. Graham Thomson, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
What are you watching for tonight when the results start to come in?
Yeah, the polls are indicating it's a UCP majority. That's the official opposition Conservative Party here in Alberta. They're headed towards, it seems to be a majority government. We'll see what happens, of course. But this is what we're looking for, and the question is going to be, how big will that be? But of course, the other question is, like, if the polls could be completely screwed up. We've seen this happen a couple of times. 2012, the polls were wrong, and we got another PC government. The Wild Rose did not win that. Last time around, didn't know what was going to happen. The NDP won, so there's still that hope that the NDP has. They could still, in a sense, upset the polls and win tonight. But right now, we're looking for looking at a UCP majority. It's a likely outcome. The question is going to be, how big will that be? And conversely, how big or small will the NDP opposition be, if in fact it turns out that way?
Okay, are we going to see, because much has been said over the years about what's been called the traditional pattern of voting, one pattern in Edmonton, voting one way, Calgary voting another, and then the other rural areas of Alberta being a case of their own. Do you think we'll see that again, or was that shattered in the last NDP victory in the last election?
Yeah, this is exactly, tonight we'll be looking at probably the NDP doing really well in Edmonton, but then the battleground has been Calgary. So we'll be watching Calgary to figure out, can the NDP hang on to government? It's a battleground in Calgary because the UCP is doing really well in the rest of the province outside the major cities. NDP is doing relatively well in Edmonton. The question is all about Calgary, and can the NDP hold on to seats there, or is the UCP, according to the polls, going to do really well in that city? So you're going to have perhaps two out of the three, UCP winning rural Alberta and Calgary, and then Edmonton potentially becoming an island of NDP support. That's happened in the past. We've seen Edmonton tends to vote more progressive, if you can call it that, in terms of Liberals and the NDP, and the rest of the province a bit more conservative. So that's what we're expecting to see tonight. You may actually see the capital city going in a different direction than the rest of the province.
A lot has been made in the media about a record number of advanced ballots already being cast in this election. What do you make anything of that?
Yeah, it's huge. It's 700,000 people voted. That's like a quarter. The total number of people who can actually vote have actually voted early. And part of it, I think, is convenience. People could vote anywhere. If you lived in the suburbs of Edmonton, you could vote downtown during your lunch hour. 5 days of advance voting. Now, what's interesting is the large number of people who came out and voted in advance. What does that mean? Is it people voting for change? Is it the ground wars that the NDP got out their vote? Or is this people who are angry at the NDP came out and voted? But also, you got 230,000 people voted anywhere. So their votes that they voted somewhere other than their actual riding, their vote will be counted in their home riding, but that count won't begin until tomorrow. So if we have some close races, we might not be able to tell who actually won the particular riding until later this week. So it could make things more of a nail-biter in the election tonight.
Okay, I don't want to presume the outcome tonight, but one question that will come up is, could outgoing Premier Rachel Notley have done anything differently in this campaign, or even in the 4 years?
Yeah, this is a big question. Of course, we'll see what actually happens tonight. Of course, if they win, then they're all geniuses, and we all got it wrong in the media, and the pundits and the pollsters. But yeah, the question is, did they do anything wrong? And I was writing a column on this because I think that the NDP may have made a mistake by going so negative against Jason Kenney so early in the campaign. Of course, Kenney was all about oil and pipelines, energy, jobs, and the economy. Notley went against Kenney on a very personal level. I called him basically a cheat and a liar when it came to winning the 2017 UCP leadership race. And she didn't really defend her record because the economy is right now stagnant, maybe slipping backwards. The jobless rate is up in Edmonton and Calgary, and there's no new pipeline underground. So she couldn't really campaign, she thought, on those. But she did not campaign on her record. She has a huge deficit, a big debt, $60 billion. But she could have campaigned, and she's done that in the past, in the last couple of years, talking about why she ran up such a big deficit. It wasn't to go on a gambling vacation to Vegas. She did it to build bridges and build schools and hospitals, keep people employed. We're going through a recession, so the government kept on borrowing to spend money to keep people employed and keep the economy going. So she could have done that, but she didn't seem to go that way. She went more on the personal attacks against Jason Kenney. And people were saying, look, our issue in Alberta is the economy. It's not Jason Kenney's socially conservative background. It's not on the UCP leadership race. It's not on Notley versus Kenney. It's all about the economy and jobs. And they felt, it seems, according to the polls, that Kenney was doing a better job of articulating that, and articulating also Alberta's anger at other parts of the country against British Columbia, against the federal government for not doing enough to help out Alberta during tough times.
Okay, that raises another issue, and that was my next question. That is, Jason Kenney, if he wins, he's promised to set up a commission to look into equalization payments to Ottawa. The complaint being that a lot of Albertans feel that the system's unfair. Alberta's still paying into it, even in dire economic times. Today, when Prime Minister Trudeau here in Ontario was asked about Mr. Kenney's plans about equalization, he shot back that Jason Kenney was a minister in the Harper government, which put into place the latest equalization formula. Where do you think that leaves Jason Kenney if he becomes premier?
Yeah, but he's heard that argument. He said, look, times were better back then. They were different back then when they changed the equalization formula under the Harper government. But a lot of promises that Kenney has made, including having a referendum in Alberta to help fight equalization, turn off the taps to British Columbia, take the federal government to court over the federal carbon tax, and also take the constitutional fight on Bills C-69 and C-48. These fights, and he'll lose these fights. Constitutional experts say he hasn't got a hope in hell of winning these fights, but people appreciate the fact that he's willing to do this. This is a page from Ralph Klein's book, the former premier of Alberta, who promised to fight the GST, same-sex marriage, equalization. Well, he didn't, but people applauded when he threatened to fight Ottawa, and no Alberta premier has ever done badly by picking a fight with the federal government.
Okay, I want to ask a question about one of our commentators in the profile that CPAC has been playing. One of our commentators was commenting on this idea of quote-unquote Bozo eruptions from some conservative candidates. Some of those comments were seen as sexist or racist or intolerant. Are Albertans so mad and so concerned by the economy that at this point, what might have before influenced their vote, they're just going to turn their heads and vote for the economy and for the Conservatives?
Yeah, in a word, yes. That's exactly what happened. We've had the Bozo eruptions. That is, people who were with the UCP or running to be candidates with the UCP, having a history of making intolerant comments on social media. Kenney lost 2 candidates in the first 2 weeks. Candidates that had been vetted and chosen actually were left the campaign. They were kicked out. Actually, they left voluntarily because of social media postings. But it seems that this is sort of, in a sense, we're hitting a nerve. We've killed that nerve. People aren't reacting to that anymore. The Bozo eruptions caused major problems for the Wild Rose back in 2012. That helped sink their campaign. This time around, we're hearing the same thing over and over again. People seems to have already baked in the fact that the UCP has some intolerant members. People seem to be looking past that, looking at the economy, looking at jobs and pipelines, and tending to ignore all the other chatter about the so-called Bozo eruptions.
Okay, Graham Thomson, always a pleasure. Something tells me we may be speaking with you after the election, after the results and the smoke is cleared. Thanks for speaking with us again.
I look forward to it.